This show, the whole purpose was to talk about personal development stuff and kind of share lessons that Cub and I learned and hopefully help other people get better as these things helped us get better. But I kind of wanted to mix it up today and tell you some ghost stories. I know it doesn't really fit the format, but I've been wanting to document this stuff like verbally, and I have it written down. I have like a little journal that anytime some weird shit happens, I'll write it down. And so I have a bunch of stories that I've said verbally to people, and I recorded some of these some years back on this podcast, but I just wanted to do an episode where I shared a bunch of stories because I still see shit, and so I have some other stories. So anyway, let's just do that. If you're on audio and you can leave a comment there, feel free to tell me if you like this because I have some other shit I could share. And if you can't leave a comment, just head over to my YouTube channel. It's Bus 166 MSK on YouTube, and you can comment on the episode there because I'd be curious to see if you guys want to hear more shit like this. So I have a list of stories that I wanted to share, and these aren't going to be in chronological order because I wanted to share the best one for last. So if you're getting bored and you want to skip to something that's not boring, I don't know if these are boring, but if you want to skip to the end, but stay to the end because the last story is the best. So I'm going to run through. I got like 6, 7 of these. Some of them were very short, but I wanted to start with my very first one that I can remember, and I think it was around 1979. I was probably 5 or 6 years old. So I don't know if 1979 is exactly when it was. I don't know. But it was in the house that I had moved to around that time when I was a little kid. And so I had woke up in the middle of the night and I was thirsty. So I got up to get a drink. And in this house, there was a long hallway. Well, it seemed long when I was little. I'm assuming it probably was a normal hallway. But as a little kid, it was a long hallway. And at the end was the living room. And in there's a couch and there was like 2 lamps on each side of it. And as I'm walking down the hallway, I think one of the lamps was on. And so I could sort of see in the living room, but it was a little dark and I was really groggy. But as I'm walking down the hallway, I see there's a man sitting on the couch and I thought it was my dad. And I was walking out there and he was just sitting there and he was just looking forward, not moving. And so as I'm approaching, he turns and looks at me. And when he does that, I was like really weirded out because I'm like, why is my dad just sitting on the couch in the living room? And so as I'm approaching, the figure just faded away as it's looking at me. And, I've had like weird little things when I was a little kid when I would wake up and I would be disoriented, like I would think that I was... it was a different time or something like that. Like, for example, when I was in high school, I woke up at like 3:00 in the morning and I thought it was time to get up and go to school. And it was in the shower and my dad came in the bathroom. He's like, what the fuck are you doing? And I was like, I got to go to school. And he's like, it's 3:00 in the morning, So I have had things like that and it made me question whether or not I saw this, but just the way that the memory stands out, like all of those times when that happened, the other thing where I woke up and I was kind of disoriented, I snapped out of it, and I knew that I was like, sleepwalking or whatever. This was a different type of memory. Like I clearly remember it and being so young and at the age that I am now, like that memory is still very clear to me. So I really do feel like I saw something supernatural. And the reason I also wanted to share this real quick is when I was telling Jessie some of these stories and when I tell her when these weird things happen, I always thought that like everybody saw weird shit. And it turns out that that's not the case. Like Jessie has never seen anything like that. And she's actually actively seeked it out and gone to like ghost tours and like haunted places to try to see these things. And she never did see them. So I feel like I have some unique experiences and I just wanted to kind of document those. So let's go a little bit later. I think I was like in grade school or maybe like middle school or something. It was in the 80s. And I was walking home from somewhere. I don't remember where. And there's this weird street that kind of went along a creek bed, sort of like the LA River, but not quite as big. But it was like a creek, like a cement type of creek. And then there was this like big hill that was all, like kind of dead plants and shit like that, like a kind of a deserty type of a hill. And if I walked up that hill, it was like a shortcut to get to my house. And this one day I'm walking up that hill, and I'm pretty close to the top of the hill, and I felt something wrap around my leg. And it was gentle, like it didn't like grab my leg, but it was like something completely wrapped around my leg. And I was like thinking that I caught my leg on like a weed or something. And so when I went to take off whatever was on my leg, there was nothing there, but like my pants were bunched up and lifted, like as if something was holding my pants, and there was literally nothing there. So like something was like holding onto my leg. And that's all I remember from that, but it was super weird. And so I want to fast forward to the house that I'm living in now. And so when Jesse and I moved here in, I think, 2021, the first thing we did was we drove a bunch of shit out, and we were just going to put it in the garage. And then we went back to California, and then we were actually going to do the move in later. And so when we got here, we opened up the garage and we start moving shit in. And we noticed like in the, I don't know if it's the back or the front, but it's the corner of the garage that's closest to the garage door. There's one of those, like, I don't know what they're called, the particle board with the little holes in it where you like hang tools and shit. And so in that corner of the garage, there's a crucifix there. And like, that's not super weird, like a crucifix in a house, but like just the placement of it, I was kind of weirded out by it, because I'm like, it's just such a strange place to have a crucifix, like in the corner of a garage. There wasn't like a desk there. There wasn't anything like that. It was just, and that was all that's on the wall. And still there. I was like, I don't know why that's here, but I'm just going to trust that it should be there. And I just left it, and it's still there to this. Well, I'm assuming it's still there. But what's interesting is, and this, I'll get into some more stories where I actually saw things, but like, this is one of those kind of stories that I always take with a grain of salt when I hear other people say them, because it's like a feeling that you get, sort of like an energy. And so after we were moved in a little down the line, I bought a pull-up rack and a dip bar and all this combination thing. And I put it in the opposite corner of the garage. And so when I do my workouts, I'll do like some stuff in the house, and then I'll go out to the garage. I'll do some pull-ups or some dips or something like that. And so when I'm out there at night, and I don't know if I planted this in my head. I don't think I did, because it's like it's a genuine feeling that when I'm doing my pull-ups, like I feel like there's somebody right behind me. And so I want to get the fuck out of that garage. So I'll go out and I'll do my set, and I just get out of there as quick as possible. And so I still feel that all the time. And so I think there's something weird going on in that garage. And then in this house in general, there's some weird shit going on. And along the lines of the feeling stuff, in my backyard, one of my workouts that I would do when I was doing 75 hard for the outside workout is I would do a kettlebell carry sort of around the perimeter of the pool back there. And as I'm walking around, there's windows to this room and the room right here, which is Jesse's office. And I always feel like I don't want to look in the window of Jesse's office, because I feel like something's going to be looking at me. And again, that's like kind of something that you can't really, it's not a real story. Like I didn't see anything, but it's like a weird feeling. So I'll get into some things that actually happened and that I've seen. In this house, I always see things in the corner of my eye. When I'm showering in the bathroom in our master bedroom, I keep the door closed, because like whenever I'm showering in there, if I have the door open, like the shower curtain is sort of translucent, and I always see shit moving around in the room. And when I first started seeing that, I would like open the shower curtain, and sometimes I even get out thinking that maybe like a dog came into the room, and we have a baby gate there, so like I usually close it. And so when I would see things moving around, I'd be like, "What the fuck is there a dog in there?" And eventually, like the more times I looked, there was never anybody in there. There was never anything in there. So I get weirded out, and I see things like that all the time. But there's some stuff that has happened in this house that like I just can't explain. And so I'll talk about this one. So I have several dogs, and one of them sort of does this weird thing where she like, and if you have a dog, you've probably seen this happen, where they kind of like dig and they like mash their face into the couch or a cushion or a blanket or something like that. And they make all these like weird little growling sounds. And so in the middle of the night, I was woken up to that sound in the living room, and my dog that normally sleeps in the bed with us, she was out in the living room doing that, and it woke me up. And so I'm sitting there, I'm laying there, and I hear her. I'm like, what the fuck is she doing out there? Why is she out there in the middle of the night digging around? And so as I kind of wake up and I sort of start to sit up to go check on her, I noticed on the corner of the bed, there's a white dog sitting there, and she's a white dog, but she's the only white dog in the house. And this white dog is just sitting there, and it's looking out the doorway towards the living room. And I'm like, if she's out there in the living room, who the fuck is this sitting on the edge of the edge of the bed? And so I'm sitting there, and I'm awake, I focus, and the dog's there, and then eventually the dog just sort of fades away. And then I'm like, I must be tripping. I get up, I go out in the living room, and sure enough, my white dog is out there doing what I heard her doing. So I don't know who this dog was. I did have a white dog that passed away in 2019. So part of me is wondering if that white dog is still with me, and he was, sitting guard at the edge of the bed. I don't know. I can't really explain it. There's another dog story. There's another one after this that's super creepy, not dog related, but another dog story. So we have another dog, Taco. She's a little brown dog, and she's kind of a menace. So she sleeps in a crate because she's always going to get into shit. She pisses on the floor. She's like a street dog that like just never quite acclimated to normal life, So she loves the crate. She gets excited to go in there. So in bedtime, when we go, oh, it's bedtime, she goes and runs and wags her tail and sits in front of the crate. So it's not like she doesn't want to be in there. It's for her own safety that she doesn't go out in the living room and jump up on a chair and onto a counter and eat something she should have, whatever. So anyway, she always sleeps in the crate. And Tummy is the white dog that sleeps on the bed. And so one night I woke up, and there was a dog next to me. And I wear a sleep mask so that I can sleep better. And so I lift up the sleep mask, and it's a brown dog. And I see Tummy on the end of the bed. And I'm like, oh, I must have forgot to lock Taco up. So I'm like petting her. I go back to sleep. Wake up a little while later. Brown dog's still in the bed, but she's in a different place. She's over by Jesse now. Tummy's still somewhere. And so then I go back to sleep. I wake up in the morning. The brown dog's not there. And I'm like, oh, Taco must have, gone back to her crate to finish sleeping. I get up and I go to her crate, and Taco's locked in the crate. And I'm like, who the fuck was that? Like, I did have a brown dog that passed away last year. So I'm like, was that him? I don't really know. Clear as day though, 2 times I woke up, there was a brown dog in the bed. I actually pet the dog, and she was locked up in the crate the whole time. So I'm like, what the fuck? I don't know what the fuck that was. Another story that's kind of scary that happened in this house. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I looked out to the doorway, and I saw something moving past the doorway. And I was like, oh shit, like Jesse must have got up to use the restroom or something. I look over, and Jesse's there. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm sitting there all freaked out. And you know how like when you see something or you hear something or whatever, somebody says something, and then you sort of process it later, and you kind of remember details that you didn't remember in the moment. So like, we're talking about a minute or so. I'm thinking like, what the fuck was that? And so I started going back to looking at what I saw in the doorway. And I realized, like, obviously it couldn't have been Jesse, because whatever this was, it had to be like 8 feet tall, because its head was higher than the doorway. And then the other weird thing is, like, it wasn't walking, it was drifting. So it was just slowly drifting past the doorway. And the other thing is, like, that doorway is not like in the middle of a hall. Like, there's a wall right there. So wherever this thing was coming from was from a wall, like as if it was outside the house and drifted through the wall and then past the doorway. And I was just like totally freaked out, because I know I saw that. And yeah, so that's that. There was another dog story that is kind of weird, but I don't know if it was weird or not. But so Tummy is in the bed with us, and I wake up in the middle of the night and I look, and she's sitting like on the very corner of the bed, and she's just looking out the doorway, and she's just focused on something. And so usually when I start to move around, the bed moves, and she notices that I'm moving around, and her attention will shift to me. But this didn't happen. And so I moved all the way down the bed, and she just stayed focused on the doorway. And I put my hand on her back, and that's when she realized I was there, and she got real startled, turned and looked at me real fast. Like, she didn't feel me moving or anything. And I was like, that was super weird. But what was kind of strange is, like, oddly, like, the house has some kind of ambient light from different things, like clocks and shit like that. And normally you can kind of see your way around while it's dark, but like there's light coming in from outside, like the neighbor's porch light and shit like that. There's always some kind of ambient light. But this night, the house was so dark. Like when I looked out the doorway, it was pitch black. And normally you can see some kind of light coming in from Jesse's office. And then again, there's just some ambient light, but there was none. It was like completely black. And so I was kind of thirsty. So I was like, I'm gonna go get a drink of water. But it was so dark in my house. Like I couldn't navigate. Like I had to feel my way through, and it's just never like that. So I don't know what the fuck was going on. Like my dog might have been tapped into something, and then the darkness of the house, like it was just really unusual. Okay, so those are things that happen in this house. There's more stuff, but there's more stories like that. This one thing I can't explain. So in the San Pedro location, when Machine Studio was in San Pedro, we started in 2015 in this one place. We were there for 2 years, and then we moved up the street to another place. And the other place always felt kind of weird. And in that place, there's like the big main area. If you've ever been there, most of you probably haven't, but there's like the big main area where we had our retail, and we had a big art gallery there. And then there's a loft. And in that loft, there's like this weird window. It doesn't have glass. It's just like a window with the molding around it. And it went into this kind of add-on place in the back that was just more like almost like a warehouse type of thing. And that window is always really weird. So when you're in certain parts of the place, you can look up there, and it's always just pitch black. You can't see anything in there. And it was always weird looking up there because I just had this feeling, And this story isn't based around feelings. Like some shit actually happened. So, I actually lived there for several years. So I would sleep in this room that's kind of like up on that loft, but off to the side of where that window was. And so it always felt kind of weird in that space. And then one day I was at the shop, and Adrian and Ricardo were there. They were downstairs, and I was like cleaning up this like storage area up there. And there's 2 stairways that go up to that. and it looked like they kind of added on this other thing. And both of them are very loud. So if anybody even walks up quietly, you'll hear it. And so I'm in this room and I'm kind of cleaning things up, and somebody walks by the door. And I was facing the door. I just wasn't looking at it. So I saw a person, like 100% it was a person. Like they even had a shirt on that had some kind of design on it. Like I just saw it out of the corner of my eye. Well, not even the corner of my eye. Like, let's say you're the doorway. I'm like this, you know? And so I was like, that's crazy. How did one of them get up here without me hearing it? And so I stopped what I'm doing and I go out into the loft area where I saw the person and nobody was there. So I went downstairs and Adrian and Ricardo, they're the only two people there. I was like, did either of you guys go upstairs? Either way, there's no way they could have gotten back downstairs in the time that I walked out there. And even if they did run down the stairs, like I would have heard it. And both of them were like, no, we've been down here the whole time. They were like in the middle of work. I was like, I just fucking saw somebody up there. There was like a fucking actual person up there. And everybody there agreed, especially Adrian, because Adrian was there. He closed. And there was a couple nights where he called me and he was like, man, I just, I hate to do this, but can I close early? Because like there's some weird shit happening here. Like he would hear things moving around up in that fucking loft area over by where that window is. And so I'm like, yeah, cool. Go ahead and leave early, you know, because it just gets really dark and quiet in that, that space. What was crazy though, about that space in general is after all this, happened, like did not know about this. I had seen a lot of things. And then one day I was working the shop and I was alone and I saw, this guy outside and he was kind of just standing there and he's just looking around, just looking at the building. And he had this kind of look at him on his face, you know, like almost like he's looking in a nostalgic place, like he knew the place or something. So I was like, that's weird. So I went out there and I was like, hey man, how you doing? And he's like, hey, what's going on? He's like, my dad used to own this building. And I was like, oh, really? You know, what was it? The landlord, this lady, I was like, yeah, I don't remember how the conversation went. I'm kind of drawing a blank on it, but, I was like, yeah, my landlord is, the daughter of the person that owned the building. And I didn't know the guy had died. And so the guy was like, yeah, that's my sister. And so we were talking a little bit and he's like, yeah, my dad actually passed away in this building. And I was like, really? I didn't tell him any of this stuff because I don't know, that probably isn't the best conversation, but he actually died on the other side of that fucking window that freaks us out, you know? And so, yeah, there's some shit in that building. I'd be curious to see if anybody else. So anyway, I want to get to the better stories. So this is the best story that I have and the scariest thing that's ever happened in my whole life. It's a series of events. So, in the mid 90s, I think around 1996, like I had some life shit happen and I ended up moving back in with my folks for a little while. My parents lived in this house. My little brother still lived there and my little sister, my older brother had moved out and started a family. And, so they had this house that had like one of those houses that had like two living rooms, like one's a living room and one's like a den or a family room or some shit like that. So they had this living room, this extra living room. And so they were like, yeah, you can stay in there. And so they set me up with like my little sister's old bed. And like, basically it was still set up like a living room. They just put this bed in there for me to sleep on because it was like a temporary situation. And so next to the bed, you know, everything's still set up like a living room. And so the recliner that was in there, I think they moved a couch out to make room for the bed. Or no, the couch was still there. So there was like a couch and there was a recliner and then there was this little bed. And the recliner was like right next to the bed that I was sleeping on. And so I started waking up in the middle of the night and I would look over and there was a dude sitting on that recliner, but he wasn't like a full blown dude. It was a shadow. You heard about these shadow people. It was like, you can see everything but everything is just like monochrome, like dark gray, like not transparent or anything, but just, well, maybe kind of transparent. I don't really know, but it was an outline of a dude. And so I would freak out because I would think it was a real person sitting there, and I'd start yelling like, "What the fuck are you doing in here?" And I'd reach to turn on the light. As soon as the light went on, uh, the guy was gone. So he wasn't there as soon as the lights came on. But when the lights were off, he was there. So this happened a bunch of times, and started really freaking me out because it was not an isolated incident. Like I'd wake up, and it got to the point where I would wake up and I'd immediately look to the recliner, hoping that the fucking guy wasn't there. And sure enough, he would be there. And I'd turn the light on, and he would be gone. I would yell and do all the things. And then one night, this is the scariest thing that's ever happened to me in my whole fucking life. Like, I don't know what I don't know how the fuck I even slept in that room after this. So one night I wake up, and I didn't even have a chance to look over because this motherfucker was hovering right over my face. His face was this close to my face, like inches away from my face. And his face was glowing. I was just like, what? Like, I feel the fear that I felt when that happened. I start just fucking swiping at him because who expects to wake up and have a face right in front of you? Turn the light on, he's gone. And so then eventually I moved out. And my parents, maybe a couple of years later, they ended up moving out as well. I never told anybody about any of this shit because I still have it in my head. I'm like, maybe I didn't really see that. Maybe I didn't really experience it. Maybe I was dreaming or something. So I didn't really tell anybody any of that. I didn't tell my family any of that. And so I go to help them move. And my dad and I are moving some boxes out, putting them in the truck. And I was like, hey, man, do you think this house is haunted? And he was no hesitation at all. He's like, hell yeah, this place is haunted. I was like, really? Like, what did you see? Like, what happened? Because I've seen some shit in here. He starts telling me all these stories about, like, he'd be in this, there was a weird little add-on thing that they had, and it was like a little, my parents had like a little, they'd set it up like a craft room. My mom's into like crochet and all this kind of stuff. And he had an office in there. And he'd say he'd be in there working, and he'd see somebody walk by the doorway. And he's like, I saw somebody, like, that's 100%. There was a person that walked by the doorway. So he thought like my mom had gotten home. So he'd be like, he said, so I thought she had got home. So I went out to see, talk to her or whatever. And he'd look around the whole house and she wouldn't be there. And then she'd come back later and, it'd be like, well, who the fuck was that walked by my door? And there was all these kind of things that happened. Before I saw this shadow guy, there was a lot of little things that like I just kind of dismissed, like the stuff you'd see in the corner of your eye and stuff like that. And it's like, maybe I was just seeing things, and I just sort of dismissed them until I saw this fucking shadow dude. And so my dad didn't mention the shadow guy, but obviously he saw like things in the corner of his eye. And it's hard to like say like, yeah, I saw that, when it was like, you kind of saw it, like maybe your mind was playing tricks on you, but he saw a bunch of this happened to him a bunch of times. And when I was there, I would hear things, I would see things. There was one time I was watching TV on in the regular living room, sitting on the couch, and the couch is like up against the wall where the front door is. I started hearing like it's like tapping on the door, not a knock, just like a tap. And I'm like, what the fuck was that? And I just ignored it. And then I'm just sitting there, and then I hear it again. So I go out, and there's nobody there. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe some kids are fucking with me or something. And then later down the line, I saw this fucking shadow guy. But what's crazy is I got like super confirmation that this shadow guy was really there, because it wasn't that long ago, a few years ago, I think, my sister called me, and she was on three-way or whatever with my mom. And my sister asked me, she's like, did you see some shit when you were living at the house? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, did you see like a shadow guy? And I was like, yeah, what the fuck? I was like, did you see that guy too? Like, I never told anybody about this. And she's like, yeah, so the way that it was is like that living room that I stayed in was, like at the end of a hall. So like, if you look, there's the living room, and then a little further down, my little brother's room, a little further down was my little sister's room. On the other side of my sister's room was my parents' room. And then there was just a wall that, where the hallway ended. And my sister's bed was positioned so that she could see right out the door, and she could kind of see that wall. She would wake up in the middle of the night and see that fucking shadow guy emerge from the wall and walk down the hallway towards the fucking room that I was staying in. And I don't know if I was more freaked out seeing that, but than I was of my sister telling me that she saw the same motherfucking guy. I never told her about it. It's not like she was like confirming some shit that I told her. She presented me with the information that she saw a shadow guy, and the fucking guy walked down the hallway towards the room that I kept fucking seeing him in. So there's for sure a shadow guy in that house, you know? So anyway, I don't know if this is interesting to you guys, and I don't know if this is the right place for it. But again, I just wanted to document this stuff, and I will document more things that I see, just because I want to have like a video record of me talking about this stuff. Because the older I get, I'm sure the more I'm going to forget these details. But maybe not. I still remember that one from when I was a little kid. But if you find this interesting, leave a comment on the YouTube channel and let me know, because I have this other story that I want to share. It's a more spiritual type of thing that happened to me just recently. But if this kind of content is not really what you guys want to hear, then yeah, I understand. You can also send me a message on Instagram if you don't want to go to YouTube, at Bus166 on Instagram. So those are my ghost stories. I have some more, but those are the best ones that I can think of. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you next time. All right.
Appreciate each and every one of you guys who are supporting the cause and continue to spread the love. And yeah, stay up.